Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Jai Gurdev. Thank you for joining us on Sada Apna show, Love, Laugh and Live.
प्यार करो हंसो ते जुग जुग जियो वाला शो शुरू करने तो पहला ये कहना है आज को जीना है तो ऐसे जिए आज को जीना है तो ऐसे जिए हर सोच में प्यार शांत में खुशबू आवे which means let's live our lives with beautiful thoughts and actions that create a joyful fragrance in all areas in our lives. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Dav. I'm a spiritual life coach and so happy here to share my time with your lovely viewers. And next to me is my lovely co-host, Gurdial.
Hi everyone, I'm Gerdu Garcha and I'm a resilience and empowerment coach. And I feel really privileged to be here to share our program with you today. Love, laugh and live.
So today's topic, Gurdial, is about
anger.
Gussa.
Yeah, Josh.
And so what causes the symptoms and the effects of anger and how we begin to reduce our feelings around anger.
And I'm just going to explain the English Oxford Dictionary what anger actually means. It's a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure or hostility. So we're going to use two different stories today, showing you different ways of dealing with anger that Dav has very kindly chosen. So we would like you, the audience, to see where you might identify with the story, or you might think, or you may know somebody that's that the story kind of reminds you of. So the story is called The Tiger's Whisker, and it's an inspirational story. So I hope you enjoy it.
Yes, I hope you do enjoy it because we had so much fun just rehearsing this as well earlier on. And we're going to play two roles in here as well. So I'm going to play the role of this wife. Her name is Yunak. And Gurdial's going to play a role of this wise man called a hermit who lives in the forest. And he has this special unique gift of making a herbal medicine to treat people's illnesses, potions and things. So here we go. Hope you enjoy this story. So, okay, once upon a time, a young wife named Eunuch was at a wit's end. Her husband had always been a tender, loving soulmate before he had left for the wars. But ever since he returned home, he was cross, angry, and unpredictable. She was almost afraid to live with her own husband. Only in glancing moments, she did catch a shadow of his loving, caring nature.
So in Punjabi, this means ek wife si oda na Eunuch siga ta oda husband jang nu gaya si lal lod ke aaya si ghar nu ta jadon da mud ke aaya si onu jida gussa josh bahut zyada aun lag paya si par ud to pehla oh bahut aapse vich pyar karde sige हलीमी ना सारा कुछ जिदा करते होंगे से घर का काम या जो कुछ भी सगा तो फिर यूनुक ने सगा भी मेरा हस्बैंड बहुत चेंज हो गया है
हाँ जी so when one ailment or another कोई किस्म को सेहती कोई problem से bothered anyone in the village, they would often rush for a cure to this wise man who lived in the forest and in the mountains as well. So not Yanuk, she always prided herself that she could, solve her own problems, that she never needed to go to this wise man. But this time it was different. She was desperate. She needed help.
So Eunuch nu सगा कि ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਘਰੇਲੂ ਘਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਆ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਆਪੇ ਸੌਰਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਹੈਲਪ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਪਰ ਐਤਕੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਹਸਬੰਡ ਬਹੁਤ ਗੁੱਸੇ 'ਚ ਸੀਗਾ ਜੋਸ਼ 'ਚ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੈਲਪ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ
So as Eunuch approached the hermit's hut, she saw the door was open. The old man said without turning around,
I hear you. What is your problem?
She explained the situation, the Sara situation, wise man samjhaya. His back still turned to her. Fir kenda?
It is often that way when soldiers return from war. What do you expect me to do? So ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਜੰਗ ਲੜਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਇਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਅਸਰ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਆ ਵੀ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਕੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਤੇਰੇ ਲਈ
ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਉਹਨੂੰ Please make me a portion, cried the wife. in anything, a drink, kuch bhi ho, to bring my husband, make him that loving man I used to know before he went to the war.
So ਉਹ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ hermit ਆ ਸਿਆਣਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਦਵਾ ਦੇ ਦੇਵੇ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਮੇਰਾ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਉਹੀ ਪਿਆਰ ਵਾਲਾ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਬਣ ਜਾਵੇ. So
ਫਿਰ the old man turned around, ਫਿਰ ਵਾਪਸ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿੰਦਾ,
young woman, your request doesn't exactly fall into the same category as a broken arm or an ear infection.
I know, but please, I need your help. How can you help me?
So ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਦਵਾ ਇਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਿਸ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਬਾਂਹ ਟੁੱਟੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਏਅਰ ਇਨਫੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਂ ਤੇਰੀ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹਾਂ. ਪਰ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਟਰਾਈ ਕਰੂੰਗੀ, ਮੈਨੂੰ 3 ਦਿਨ ਲੱਗਣੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚਿਰ ਤੂੰ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਨਾ ਆਈ.
Okay, so 3 days later, eunuch returns to the hermit's hut, and then he greets her.
So ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਖੁਸ਼ਖਬਰੀ ਆ. So ਮੈਂ ਤੇਰੇ ਲਈ ਦਵਾ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਪਰ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ.
Tell me, what can I do? Please help me.
So ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਦੀ ਮੁੱਛਾਂ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਬਾਲ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਲਿਆਉਣੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਫੇਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਦਵਾ ਬਣਨੀ ਆ.
What? That's impossible. ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਹਾਂ?
ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਗੈਰ ਨਹੀਂ. I cannot make it without that whisker. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਗੈਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਣਨੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ. ਫਿਰ ਹੋਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਝ ਕਹਿਣਾ, ਤੈਨੂੰ ਲਿਆਉਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਆ.
Okay, so that night, eunuch tossed and turned. How could she get the whisker from a tiger, especially a live tiger? The next day before dawn, she crept out of the house with a bowl of rice covered with meat sauce. She went to the cave on the mountainside where a tiger was known to live. She clicked her tongue and as she approached, and a heart pounding carefully, set the bowl on the grass, and then trying to make as little noise as possible, she backed away.
So ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਰਾਤ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਯੂਨਕ ਨੂੰ ਨੀਂਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰੂੰਗਾ ਵੀ ਐਡਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਉਹਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਆਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵਿਸਕਰ ਆ ਲਿਆਉਣੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਆ. ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਆ ਕੇਵ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮਾਊਂਟੇਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਟਰਾਈ ਕਰੂੰਗੀ. ਸੋ ਉਹਨੇ ਚੌਲ ਬਣਾਏ, ਮੀਟ ਵਾਲਾ ਸੌਸ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਤੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਦਿਲ ਧੜਕਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਧੜਕ ਐਂਡ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਟਰਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ ਤਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਰੱਖ ਦਿੱਤਾ.
Okay, so the next day before dawn, she took another bowl of rice and covered it with meat sauce to the cave. She approached the same way, spot clicking it karke, just to let the tiger know she's coming, and she saw the bowl was empty. And then she replaced it with a new bowl with more food in it, and again left clicking softly, trying not to break any twigs and rustle any leaves or do anything to startle or upset the wild beast.
ਸੋ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਦੂਏ ਦਿਨ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਗਈ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਖਾਣਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਗਈ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡਿਸਟਰਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਉਹ ਡਰਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕੁਛ ਕਰ ਨਾ ਦੇਵੇ. ਤਾਂ ਬੜੇ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਰੇਜ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਗਈ ਸੀਗੀ ਵੀ ਆਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੰਮ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਮੈਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ.
So it went day after day, several months after months. She never saw the tiger. Thank goodness for that, she used to think,
Yeah.
Though she knew from the footprints on the ground that the tiger and not a smaller creature was eating the food. And then one day she noticed a tiger's head approaching out of the cave, glancing downwards. She stepped away carefully to the same spot and with a little noise as she could, set down the fresh bowl, and her heart was pounding, picked up the old one and left.
ਸੋ ਫਿਰ ਕਈ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਲੰਘ ਗਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਹਰੇਕ ਦਿਨ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹ ਖਾਣਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਲਈ ਉੱਥੇ ਰੱਖ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ. ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਡਰਦੀ ਕਰਦੀ ਰਹੀ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਆ. ਤਾਂ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਗਈ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਨੋਟਿਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਫਲੋਰ 'ਤੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਸੀ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਬਾਹਰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਖਾਣਾ ਖਾਂਦਾ ਆ. ਸੋ ਸ਼ੀ ਸਟਿਲ ਕੈਰੀਡ ਔਨ ਡੂਇੰਗ ਕਰੀ ਗਈ.
So after a few weeks she noticed a tiger would come out of its cave as it heard her footsteps. Though she stayed a distance away, she knew that someday in order to get the whisker, she would have to come closer to it. Another month went by, then the tiger would wait by the empty food bowl as it heard her approaching. As she picked up the old bowl and placed it with the fresh one, she could smell its scent, and it also could smell her scent.
So time ਲੰਘੀ ਗਏ ਤਾਂ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੇਵ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਸੈਰ ਬਾਹਰ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਰਹੀ ਉਹ ਖਾਣਾ ਰੱਖਦੀ ਰਹੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਸਮੈਲ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਸਮੈਲ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ
That's right. So then after ਦਿਮਾਗ 'ਚ ਸੋਚਦੀ ਸੀ she's going, oh actually I remember this is more like a kittenish look as she sat down to put down the bowl. It's a rather friendly creature when you get to know it. And the next time she visited, she glanced up at the tiger briefly and noticed what a lovely downturn of reddish fur it had from one eyebrow to the next eyebrow.
So ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹ ਦੇਖਦੀ ਰਹੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਗਈ ਸੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਟਾਈਮ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਪਾ ਲਿਆ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕਦਮ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਲੱਗਾ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਬਿੱਲੀ ਆ
So not a week later the tiger allowed her to gently rub its head, and it purred and stretched out like a house cat, and then she knew the time had come. The next morning, very early, she brought with her a small knife, and after she set down the fresh bowl and the tiger allowed her to pet its head, she said in a low voice,
ਸੋ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹ ਕਰਦੀ ਰਹੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਪਿਆਰ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਉਹ ਲਾਗੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਉਣ ਲੱਗ ਪਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹ ਛੇੜਨ ਲੱਗ ਪਈ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਘਰ ਦੀ ਬਿੱਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇਈਦਾ ਆ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗ ਪਈ ਸੀਗੀ
ਪਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ Oh my tiger, may I please just have one of your whiskers? While patting the tiger one hand, she held one whisker at his base and with the other hand in one quick stroke she cut off the whisker. She stood up softly, speaking her thanks, and left for the last time.
So ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੱਥ ਲਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਦੀ ਰਹੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਨਾਈਫ ਫਿਰ ਦੂਏ ਦਿਨ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਮੁੱਛ ਸੀਗੀ ਥੋੜੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਵੱਢ ਕੇ ਲੈ ਆਈ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਬਸ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਆਉਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਮੈਂ ਆਈ ਸੀਗੀ ਲੈਣ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ ਆ
So the next morning seemed endless. As soon as her husband left to go to the rice field, she ran to the hermit, the wise man's hut, clutching the precious whiskers in her fist. Bursting in, she cried to the hermit, I have it! I have the tiger's whisker!
So ਦੂਏ ਦਿਨ ਦੌੜੀ ਗਈ ਰਾਤ ਉਹਦੀ ਮਸੀਂ ਲੰਘਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਗਿਆ ਕੰਮ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਛੇਤੀ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੁੱਛ ਹੈ ਮੈਂ ਛੇਤੀ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਵਾਂ ਵਿਸਕਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਹਰਮਿਟ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਲਣ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ ਆ ਇੰਨੇ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਲੱਗੇ ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ ਆ ਮੈਂ ਲੈ ਆਂਦੀ ਆ
But hermit ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਜਵਾਬ
So he said, you don't say, ਅੱਛਾ ਸੱਚੀ ਲੈ ਆਈਆਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜੀਂਦਾ ਟਾਈਗਰ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਆਈਆਂ
Yes.
So you don't say from a live tiger.
Yes, I did.
So he said, tell me, how did you do it? ਇਹ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ?
The eunuch tells him, for the last 6 months, she goes, I earned the trust of this creature, and it finally permitted her to cut one of its whiskers.
So ਮਤਲਬ ਵੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਖਾਣਾ ਵੀ ਲਿਜਾਂਦੀ ਰਹੀ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਪੂਰੇ 6 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ 'ਚ ਪਾਉਣਾ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਟਰਸਟ ਬਿਲਡ ਅਪ ਕਰਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਹੌਲੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਵਿਸਕਰ ਮਿਲ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ
Yes. So with pride, she handed over the whisker to the hermit, and he examined it, satisfied with himself that it indeed is a whisker from a live tiger, and then he flicked it into the fire where it sizzled and burned into instantly.
So ਜਦੋਂ ਯੂਨਿਕ ਨੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੁੱਛ ਸੀਗੀ ਉਹ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਦੇਖ ਦੂ ਕੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਦੀ ਵਿਸਕਰ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਅੱਗ 'ਚ ਸੱਟ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅੱਗ ਲੱਗ ਗਈ ਤਾਂ
ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਯੂਨਿਕ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ
you no longer need the whisker. Tell me, is a man more vicious than a tiger? If a dangerous wild beast will respond to your gradual and patient care, do you think a man will respond any less willingly? मतलब कि जे तू शेर नू प्यार दे नाल हौली पेशेंटली ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਯਕੀਨ 'ਚ ਲੈ ਆਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੇਰਾ ਕੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਆ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਦਾਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ
ਹਾਂ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਤਾਂ ਬੜਾ ਖਤਰਨਾਕ ਹੈ ਬੰਦਾ ਇੰਨਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਖਤਰਨਾਕ ਹੈ ਤੂੰ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਆਦਤ ਉਹਦਾ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਠੰਡਾ ਸੁਭਾਅ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆਦਮੀ ਤਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ
ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਇਦਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ
But anyway, eunuch stood speechless ਜਦੋਂ wise man ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਤਾਂ then she turned and stepped down the trail, turning over in her mind images of the tiger and of her husband, back and forth, the husband बारे सोचे. Then she knew what she could do, that she had the power to change any situation.
पर मतलब कि जेड़ा फिर ਉਹ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਆ ਵੀ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਤੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਜੇ ਤੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਨ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ you can change this.
So the moral of the story, you see in life, in your life, sometimes challenges seem impossible, sometimes problems seem bigger than the world, but start approaching your problems like Unique did, step by step, with love, care, patience, and every day you'll notice there's changes happening.
Yeah, so I hope you found this story interesting, because this is the story of how a woman is trying to deal with her partner's anger and the effects that it can have on the whole of the relation. So the moral of how much influence others have on our behavior and how much influence we have on other people, especially when it comes to anger.
Yeah, and like I said, this story helped me to understand that that with love and patience ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਹਾਲਤ ਬਦਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ. And like ਉਹ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਤਾਂ ਬੜਾ ਖਤਰਨਾਕ ਸੀਗਾ, ਪਰ ਜੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬਦਲ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ ਆਪਦੇ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ, ਹਨਾ. So she realized that ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਸ਼ਾਂਤੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ over the months and months, and she took her focus away from her husband, didn't she?
Yeah.
And then she gave it to the sher. But even then she realized with gentleness, holly, we're not creating too much drama, she able to change the whole dynamics in the relationship there.
ਤਾਂ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਆ ਛੇਤੀ ਟਾਲ ਜਾਵੇ, ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਹੁਣ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਉਹਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਸੀ ਜੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ she didn't understand that side of things. So ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹੌਲੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਬਿਠਾਲ ਕੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਪਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਵੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਪਿਆਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ it was still there, but she just had to get underneath his trauma, I suppose.
ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਤੋਂ ਬਿੱਲੀ ਦਿਸਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਈ ਸੀ, she could see her husband that ਉਹ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਵਾਲਾ, underneath his ਗੁੱਸਾ there's a pain there that is crying out for love. On top of that, he doesn't need more judgment and criticism, he just wants more love and compassion and understanding. So what we're trying to really explain from our perspective, that if we know anyone that na gusse wala hoye, whatever, we're not helping that person or situation by us feeling more worried and stressed out and trying to question them. Go from a different approach and angle. Try and go to a place of just being calm with that compassion, Hannah, and not trying to force somebody. Holi sabah, thande sabah na, we've got that much power to change a situation.
ਤੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਗੁੱਸੇ 'ਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਆ ਹਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਇਮੋਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦੁੱਖ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਰਿਐਕਟ ਕਰਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਆ. ਬਟ ਸਾਡੀ ਜੌਬ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਯੂਨਿਕ ਨੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਵੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੁਭਾਅ ਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਆਹ ਬੋਲ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗਰਸ ਕੇ ਕੋਈ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਗੁੱਸੇ 'ਚ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਆ ਵੀ what's really going on behind that anger, that stress, that negative, really negative emotion.
And it all comes down to assumptions as well. Whatever we assume about a person, always understand this and like so she had an assumption. This is a story she started telling. मेरा हस्बैंड ऐदा सी हुण ऐदा आ, फिर उन्होंने ही दिसी जांदा सी, पर पहले ओदी स्टोरी सी oh my gosh शेर तां impossible है, उन्होंने मैंने खा लेना ना हो जाए. That's the assumption she had, but वो भी change हो गया. So this is the power of assumptions, that whatever we assume about a person's situation, so ohi disna, and now she's got the power of changing her story with her husband. My husband, I see I'm going to focus on the loving nature of him and not focus on him being an angry man.
So just have a think, if you relate to this story in any way, or you can kind of think, well, maybe if we all know somebody that has anger issues, and maybe if you kind of try to approach it in a different way, with a more compassionate, caring, peaceful way, then it's good for them, but it's also good for you.
Yes.
You were going to say something about autoimmune and things like that.
Oh yes, I mean that comes down to the autoimmune disease. It actually from childhood things, like it's to do with like why women have more tendency to hold anger and gussa in, because we've always been perceived that it doesn't look very feminine for girls to, you know, express their anger out. It looks very degrading and irresponsible, but men it looks very masculine thing to shout and everything, but ladies vaste. So when we do have anger, we actually don't, the anger is all about, everything's energy, all emotions are energy, but anger actually needs to be expressed out. But when we don't, because we've got fear of being judged and being disliked, and it's wrong for a girl to express anger, we hold it in. So energy that needs to go out, it starts attacking us. So autoimmune disease is when the immune system starts attacking the body. So we have all these diseases like thyroid, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. And it's funny that most of these diseases are women get more than men, because women have the tendency to not actually hold anger in. Men, it's okay for men to have that anger sort of expressed out, but women don't. So women have this tendency to have these autoimmune diseases more than men. You know, so it is all comes, you know, makes sense to see where it stems from, childhood.
So we've got another story now, and it's a Buddhist story. Buddha di story hai. It's all about anger, guilt, and true forgiveness. So we'll talk about these. Well, we'll read the story. It's not very long, and then we can discuss it.
Yeah, it's interesting about this story, because this story talks about how the anger affects the person who's actually got the anger issue. The other story we mentioned is about how it affects the people around, you know, the environment and the families around. So let's see if you can relate to this, you know, how you deal with anger, you know, and the impact of anger has on our body and mind and spirit.
So I'll just quickly go over this. So basically, one day Buddha was in an assembly. Buddha ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਬੜੇ ਸ਼ਾਂਤ ਨਾਲ ਬਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਸੀਗੀ ਉਹ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਸੀਗਾ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸਮੈਨ ਸੀਗਾ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਆ, 3-4 ਨਿਆਣੇ ਆ, ਵੀ ਉਹ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ, ਉਹ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੌੜ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਬੜੇ ਸ਼ਾਂਤ ਹੋ ਕੇ, ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਘਰ ਦੀ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪਰਵਾਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਘਰ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰੀਏ।
ਸਾਰੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਵਿਲੇਜ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਔਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਸੀ, ਸਾਰੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਕੰਮ ਸ਼ਾਪ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੱਲਦਾ, ਸਾਰੇ ਬੁੱਢਾ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਬੈਠੇ, ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਚੜੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ। ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੀ ਚੜ ਗਿਆ, ਫਿਰ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ? ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਚੜਦਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ, ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਅੰਦਰ ਹੀ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਖੱਪਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਇੰਨੇ ਗਲਤ ਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਬਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸ਼ਾਂਤ ਹੋ ਕੇ, ਫਿਰ ਭਰਿਆ ਪੀਤਾ ਪਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਫਿਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਏ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਬੁੱਢਾ ਬੈਠਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਮੀਟ ਕੇ, ਤਾਂ ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਗਾਲਾਂ ਗੋਲਾਂ ਕੱਢੀਆਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਜਾਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕੁਛ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਕਹਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ। ਸੋਚਿਆ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਏਦਾਂ ਕਰਨਾ, ਉਹ ਕਰਨਾ, ਇਹ ਕਰਨਾ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਚ ਏਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਕੁਛ ਨਿਕਲੇ ਨਾ, ਹਨਾ।
ਸੋ ਕਹਿਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਜਾਏ ਉਹਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਤੇ ਥੁੱਕ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਤਾਂ ਬੁੱਧੇ ਨੇ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ, ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਸੀਗੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਇਹਨੇ ਕੁਛ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਵੀ ਇੰਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਗਲਤ ਇਹਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ। You know, he's just gone and spat on Buddha's face, and he's not said anything, hasn't reacted, nothing at all. He's literally allowed him to do this, and ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, the businessman, just thought, oh my God, you know, look at what I've done, and he didn't know what to do, didn't know what to say, nobody reacted. So he literally...
He's waiting for a reaction.
Yeah, he was waiting
He's waiting that Buddha kuch kahega, baki de uthoge, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੁੱਟੋਗੇ ਕੁਛ, but ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਘਬਰਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਭੱਜ ਗਿਆ, ਹਨਾ।
ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਚਲ ਗਿਆ। ਫਿਰ ਸਾਰੀ ਰਾਤ, so all night this man that had spat on Buddha, he just couldn't understand what was going on. I mean, how could I have done something so reprehensible, so disgusting, but yet Buddha didn't react? So he was all night, he was going over and over. Yes, so he was dreaming about how could I have allowed this to happen. So it was affecting his body, his mind, and he couldn't sleep. So the next day, फिर दूसरे दिन वो सोचा कहना भी मैं मुड़ के जाऊँगा, मैं माफ़ी मांगूँगा, I'll go back to the Buddha and I'll say sorry because what I did was so bad.
Yeah, but जो कुछ रात ਨੂੰ कुछ होया सी ना, he realized that the way he behaved, it was so bad, and not bad, you know, ਉਹਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਸ਼ਰੀਰ ਪਸੀਨਾ ਆਈ ਜਾਵੇ, so something is happening in him, some changes were happening in him, that made him realize that I have to go back. नहीं तो उन्हें चैन नहीं आती सी है ना.
So मतलब कि ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਲਾਤਾ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਰ Buddha didn't react. ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਚਲ ਗਿਆ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ. Anyway ਫਿਰ ਦੂਏ ਦਿਨ ਉਹ ਗਿਆ Buddha ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਨਾਲੇ ਉਹਦੇ disciple ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ you know ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਾਫੀ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ, please forgive me. I did not know what I was doing. So ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਾਫੀ ਕਰੋ, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done this. So then Buddha replied,
I'm not going to forgive you, I'm not going to excuse you, है ना. फिर सारे हैरान हो गए thinking Buddha the first virtue, first lesson on the Buddha to forgive everyone. And Buddha said, I'm not going to forgive you. So सारे हैरान हो गए, सारी संगत, सारे thinking. I think that shocked them more than the man being angry. That how can Buddha say, I'm not going to forgive you, I'm not going to excuse you. And then फिर सारे Buddha ने पूछने लगे, why you're not forgiving this man?
So then फिर Buddha कहता why should I excuse you when you have not done anything? What wrong have you done that I should excuse your behavior? Yesterday I came, so मतलब भी वो कहता सीगा भी जो कुछ कल होया सी वो आज नहीं होया, आज तो तू होर बंदा है. So that's what he's explaining. So the businessman replied, yesterday I came to this assembly or this audience and these people and in my anger I spat on your face. I am the same person, it was me. But then Buddha ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਹੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੈਂ ਤੇਰੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਤੇ ਥੁੱਕਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੌਰੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਦਾਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ. ਪਰ ਬੁੱਢਾ ਨੇ ਇਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੱਲ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਅੱਜ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ, ਅੱਜ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਬੰਦਾ ਆ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਸੌਰੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਪਰ ਸੋ ਮਤਲਬ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਲਿਆ ਸੀ ਰਾਤੋਂ ਰਾਤ. He understood that what I did was wrong. So the guilt that he felt from doing that, he actually turned it around and came back.
So the guilt was enough punishment for him. That was the guilt that was punishing him, but it changed him. But like Buddha was saying that जो कल वाला बंदा होना आंदा ना फिर उन्हें मैं माफी देनी सी. वो तो कल वाला बंदा तो मेरे सामने है ही नहीं, आज हो रही कोई बंदा है. You know?
So मतलब ये ਜਿਹੜੀ सोचनी है Buddha जी, the thoughts that Buddha had were so deep that you know most, I'd say 99% of us would have reacted straight away. But because he was coming from such a high place, you know, with his perspective, he didn't think that there was anything to forgive. So the moral of the story.
So the moral of the story, you see in life, when we truly forgive a person, true forgiveness is when you forgive a person and not that someone doesn't even know that he has been forgiven. So let's say, you know, you don't have to show that person you've forgiven them. You can forgive them from your heart, from a distance, but that person doesn't even want to know. That is what true forgiveness is.
and मतलब भी ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਫੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਣਾ, ਪਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਾਂਤ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਉਹ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਅਗਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਚੱਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵੀ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗਲਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵੀ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਗਲਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਵੀ they can look forward to thinking that I made a mistake but I've sorted it out myself.
And I think it's so important that you shouldn't, ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਗਲਤੀ ਕੀਤੀ or whatever, you shouldn't make them feel guilty. Because you know, making them feel guilty or सच्चा forgiveness नहीं हैगा.
पर जे तुसी मोड़ के किसी ਨੂੰ रिमाइंड करना कि तू आ गलती कीती सी उदों कीती, पता नहीं दिन हो सकते महीने हो सकते साल हो सकते, फिर तुसी सच्चे दिल नाल तुसी उन्हां ने माफ़ नहीं कीता हैगा. फिर कि माफ़ी दा मतलब ये हुंदा है भी चलो तुसी गलती कीती मैं मुड़ के गल करनी नहीं हैगी ओहदे बारे.
Because guilt is enough punishment. Guilt the energy हुंदी है ना बहुत खतरनाक है. So somebody's feeling guilty, we don't need to punish them more, you know, by not forgiving them. Forgive them, but you don't have to make a big sort of scene of it, you know, to be acknowledged. You can forgive from a distance.
So the way we can start looking at the effects of anger, so it affects you physically, so it's anything to do with the body. I mean, you mentioned
I just mentioned earlier on, like the diseases you get, bamariyan, you know, there's so much illness that we get just because we held on to anger. And this anger can start from very young age, because anger related to stress hormones, cortisol, you know, and adrenaline, and that eventually, you know, that affects our heart, our blood pressure, everything rest of our lives. And then even from a young child, even if a child is watching his parents arguing and there's a lot of anger, the child at a young age is starting to already have, you know, a massive dosage of cortisol going through his blood.
Yeah, करके मतलब भी जो तुसी छोटे होंदे कई बारी थानू गुस्सा आंदा पर फिर your brain isn't developed enough for you to understand what's going on. फिर तुसी ओही अंदर रख लेंदे तो हौली हौली it manifests in some way or shape, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's so many different reasons a child would understand how to deal with their angry emotions. All it wants, a child wants to do, it wants to be loved, it wants to be accepted, it wants to be acknowledged, it wants to be praised. And when it doesn't get that, जो नहीं कोई प्यार देंदा, फिर कई बच्चे ने गुस्सा आ जाता, बच्चे ने पता नहीं मैं गुस्से ना मैं की करा, because जब मैं गुस्सा दिखा दूंगा मेरे मम्मा डैड और किसी ने भी, you know, फिर उन्होंने फिर डर में हो भी मैंने प्यार नहीं करना, फिर गुस्सा अंदर रख लेना, बट गुस्से की एनर्जी अंदर इन दबा के रख लेना, और फिर later on in our lives बीमारी बन जाती है. And also बीमारी भी नहीं, नाले सारे रिश्तेदार, relatives, relationships से और इफेक्ट होने लग जाता है, negative effect, impact है ना.
जिद्दां हुण आपां कई वारी गल करदे हां, जदों आपां छोटे होंदे न्याणे जां असीं सियाणे भी होंदे, सानू पता लग जांदा जदों असीं रूम दे विच जांदे हां भी कोई गुस्से आ. सो कई वारी किसी नूं बोलना भी नहीं पैंदा, द बॉडी लैंग्वेज तां जिद्दां उन्हां दा फेशियल एक्सप्रैशन आ, सानू पहिलां ही पता फ्रॉम द एनर्जी ऑफ द रूम, व्हेन वी वॉक इन उत्थों ही पता लग जांदा भी जिहड़ा साडे घर दा माहौल आ, it's not a loving home, it's a stressful or, you know, like it's intense. So सानू ख्याल रखना पैंदा भी जिद्दां असीं आपस विच बोलदे हां कि ਉਹ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਤੇ ਗਾਂ ਅਸਰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਪੈਣਾ ਆ, ਤਾਂ ਕਾਹਤੇ ਪੈਣਾ. ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਵੀ ਉੱਚੀ ਨੀਵੀਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, but still we should try and protect our children, ਕਰਕੇ they don't understand from that age ਵੀ ਆ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਮੇਰੇ ਮੰਮੀ ਡੈਡ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. so we just need to be mindful. ਤਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਨਿਆਣਾ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਖ 'ਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, ਉਹ ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਤੋਂ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਹੀ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਕਰਕੇ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਵੀ ਮਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, her energy it goes to the child. so ਨਿਆਣਾ born ਹੋਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ, even before a child is born, they can have like they can feel down, or you know, the stress will go to the child. So it's really important to kind of understand that as
and
well.
You can tell that with some people, they keep you at arm's length because it's all about the aura as well we have around the energy, Hannah. But when we just gusse jo hunde and all the low vibration of gussa, anger, I mean that's in jealousy, resentment, bitterness, our energy, our aura contracts. And when people are contracting the energy, we'll feel like I can't. You feel like you want to keep a distance from them.
Yeah, because you can sense that energy.
You can sense that, Hannah.
Yeah. So I mean, anyway, so that's the physical. The mental issues, like we've already mentioned. You know, there's depression, stress, high blood pressure, those sort of things. And that's when ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਅੰਦਰ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਆ, so ਹੌਲੀ that anger will show itself in other ways. And that's the interesting thing, because men suffer with blood pressure more. That's what we think, maybe, that they suffer more with blood pressure because all we gave it under gussa rakde, but mainly more women as well.
And it's mainly women. I think with men, they don't express emotions as much. Women are very good at expressing emotions, but emotions is all around the heart area, Hannah. So men, when they don't like expressing emotion because it makes them look weak and it makes them look vulnerable, and the men don't want to be seen as weak and vulnerable. They want to see like the alpha male, the alpha, the ego and things. So when men hold in emotion, they tend to have more health issues around heart and issues and blood pressure, that sort of thing. But women, funny enough, they don't have that as much because women show a lot of emotions, but women tend to have all the others like thyroid issues and things, autoimmune disease, and because women are not being accepted to express their anger, shouting, you know.
We're not saying that, you know, women should go out and start, you know, shouting and being angry. We're just sort of explaining it. So the other one is like environmental. So we have to just consider the impact that we have when we're angry on our family, our friends, our co-workers. And I'm sure all of us knows somebody at work, at home, in our community who gives off that vibe of being angry all the time, and nobody wants to approach them because they're thinking, oh God, you know, you just don't know how that person's going to react. But again, that's something that we have to kind of cope with.
Yeah, and also not just the people and the building, whatever, that has, you know, the energy of anger. It's also in the food and everything that we eat. So in that, all the anger, the energy when we're making food, everything.
Especially if you're using a bilna.
Yes. All the anger goes into that food, and then we eating, the rest of the family is eating it. Eventually that will sort of like manifest into a situation where all of a sudden everybody's having such a good day, and the next minute or next day somebody's just feeling this anger and frustration out of nowhere, because energy does do its thing when it needs to be done. Doesn't matter if it's inside you or outside you, it will show itself up.
And if we think about the emotional state that you're in, I mean, you know, like I said from before, you can see before you even meet the person, and you know, it's the root cause of any health issue. If you think about anger, you know, the way the body is, you know, the different kinds of diseases that we can get, depression and things like that. It's just we're not expressing ourselves, or we're too afraid to, depending on the situation that we're in. But it's just a way of working out what can we do. If we go back to the eunuch story, go back to the Buddha story, you know, there's different ways of looking at how to deal with your own anger.
It is, and like I said, the emotional root cause of any illness is emotional block, is where something that we have not allowed to express it properly. And actually anger is really, I think, is love crying out of us, but we show it as anger. And sometimes people think anger, they like to choose anger because I think it's easier to deal with than the emotions of sadness, guilt or shame. Yeah, people think, people, I mean, I think most people find that sadness and guilt and shame is much more intense and to deal with. So anger seems like a better way to, you know, operate and function throughout life. So they use anger because it thinks, you know, I prefer anger than feeling sad.
And again, it is about vulnerability. You know, I don't know very many men or any at all that will speak to others from an emotional level, because what they'll do, they'd rather get angry and frustrated, and unfortunately then something happens serious, like a heart attack or something, and then you work out, well, actually, as well as the diet and the environment, it could be for lots of reasons, but anger that builds up and builds up, you just don't know where it could end up. And you know, and it's important to mention that feeling is healing. And you know, if you, whatever emotion that's coming up for you, talk about it to somebody. And if you don't want to talk to your family or your friends, maybe talk to the doctor or a therapist, somebody in complete confidence.
And like I said, when I see somebody's really angry now, I actually sort of like straight away thinking this person's actually crying out for help. They're in pain. They're in a lot of pain. Even their actions look so horrific, but I know this person's crying. It's where somewhere earlier in their life where the love went missing, and they're holding on to so much sadness. And that sadness they don't know how to deal with. They feel gusse ch ban gaya. So it's really, you got to have that love and compassion. That I know Buddha is very evolved, but they're inside of all of us. There's a Buddha in all of us. We can also choose not to react and be compassionate to that person. But it takes a lot of courage and faith. And you're thinking, well, that person's already suffering so much that the anger is just, it's their pain, and it's their love in that pain that's saying, love me, but they don't know how to be loved, so it comes out in gussa.
And I think people just have an external wall, don't they? That nobody can actually get through. So matlab bhi jidda sanu koi dukh aaya howe, koi jadi musibat howe life de vich, you know, sad things happen, really tragic things happen, but and we build a wall, bi assi kand, you know, bana lene ke matlab koi hor sanu inna dukh deve na. So it's a way of protecting ourselves to stop feeling that hurt again. But in order to feel better, we do need to talk about things which are, you know, making us feel so angry, and you know, and not enjoy our life on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, what are mostly the reasons people get angry? I think it's to do with they didn't listen to me. Mere aakhe nahi lage. What I said wasn't enough, wasn't important. I wasn't loved. I wasn't respected.
Life isn't going the way I want it to.
Life is not going the way it wants to, and I feel offended. So it's when something hasn't gone our way, and where something that we were completely treated in a way that was so unfair. So this is where the gussa is really coming from, isn't it?
But that's what we put on that story. That's not necessarily what's happened.
Yes, it's
our interpretation.
Yeah, it's the meaning we put onto it. Yeah.
कि मतलब किसी ने कुछ कहता फिर असी ओहे कई बार गल झूरदे रहंदे मोड़ के and then that's affecting us. ओ तो जिन्हें कहता ओ तो चल गया या चल गई, but we sort of go over it again and again. फिर वो साडी सेहत ते असर पैंदा है.
It's like when a snake bites you, you know, the snake will bite you,
and it's done its
business, it's gone. But after the venom, it's the venom that kills you, not the bite, is it? That's what I was thinking. The bite doesn't kill you, the venom kills you, and the venom is when we started to feel reacted in anger and keep going on and on. And it's the venom that kills you, not the actual bite. So that's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think कदे जदों गुस्सा सानू आंदा है, you know, it could be for so many different reasons, physical, mental, you know, environment, somebody said or did something. But the important thing is just to acknowledge it, and we were going to talk about how to kind of deal with it, somebody else's anger or even with your own. कि जेड़ा गुस्सा थानू आंदा जद थोड़े ते किसी ने गुस्सा लाया भी आपां किद्दां इनू
How do
we deal with it? की ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਨੇ ਅਸਰ ਵਧੀਆ ਅਸਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਪਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਅਗਲੇ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਅਸਰ ਪਵੇ.
I think to really diffuse a situation where there's been a massive anger conflict, for me personally, I think over the years I've learned to do it a different way, So to diffuse it is by not reacting. Just you react ho gaya na, reacting giving examples like jawab dena, you know, gusse cha ke, you know, you get physical or slam the door, or whatever. That's reacting, But once we don't react and we choose just to step back, that's when we actually empower ourselves and we actually diffuse the situation. Because when they did something, triggered us, right? They will actually they will energize themselves from our reaction, because the moment we reaction, we've sort of like depleted our energy, or energy started depleted and they've taken it and they feel empowered by it. But if we don't deplete ourselves by reacting and just step back and deal whatever came up, whatever emotion came up, and then deal with that by processing it. That's the best way.
Karke ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੱਗ ਆ ਅੱਗ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਠੰਡੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ. So it's good, you know, the way I look at it is rather than reacting, respond. Karke ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ react ਕਰਦੇ ਉਹ ਉਸੇ ਵੇਲੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਆ. ਜਿਹੜਾ response ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋਚ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ प्यार दे नाल compassion, all those things come into it. भी जेड़ा बंदा मेरे नाल इन्ना गुस्सा है ओनू दुख तां ओनू ज़्यादा आ, मैनू तो दुख लगा होगा from what you've said, पर जेड़ा जिन्हें किया आ he's suffering more or she's suffering more. So I want to be kind to that person and think, you know, what's actually really going on. Because we all wear masks, don't we?
Oh yes.
And we can say what we really think, but really there's a much deeper issue, and it's about actually being kind, compassionate, and waiting for when the time is right to acknowledge it. But I know you've got a different way of viewing it.
I think it's first to see what dekho apne pattern dekho, you know, every time somebody makes you angry, तुसी कितना behave करते हैं, what do you do straight away? Because normally it's automatic, it's like a subconscious behavior, and it comes automatic. Before you know it, all of a sudden I've shouted back, or suddenly I just went cold and I stomped off, you know, something like that. So you see your pattern, thoda regular pattern kiya, and then you got to say to yourself, I have to the only way I can change this situation is by changing my way I'm reacting.
Yeah.
So I had to do that over the years myself. So I was thinking, this is what I normally do. How can I change this? So I changed it by stepping away from that situation. I know something's happened. I know I'm triggered because I know because I'm feeling all these horrible feelings of hurt and sadness, whatever. So I know that there is... that hurt and sadness is already in me. The person didn't give it to me. They just behaved in an anger way.
Yeah.
So I allow myself now step away from that situation, not act the anger out. And now what can I do with this, what's coming up for me? So I process it. So that love and compassion, it's not about just giving to the other person. Now I've got to give it to myself. So I'm feeling this hurt and sadness. So I'm going to say love and compassion to that sadness and hurt, because it's there. It's telling me somewhere in my younger days where I felt that love wasn't there, that compassion wasn't there, when I felt angry, somebody hurt me, so I'm going to give it to myself. So I process it, and it's not an easy thing, I know, but you have to be really, really brave and courageous doing this, and have a lot of faith and be persistent, kari jao, and give a love and compassion. It's okay, I'm going to be, just sit with this. And then holi feeling and a hurt holi starts subsiding, gets less and less.
ਤਾਂ ਨਾਲੇ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ when something's fresh in your mind, it hurts you more. But ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਠੰਡੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਨਾਲ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਆ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਕਾਤੇ ਹੋਇਆ, ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੋਇਆ, so you can think clearly. ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ you know what they say, the red mist, ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਾਲ I'm wearing red today. So ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਲਾਲ ਝਾੜਾ ਜੇ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਬੰਦਾ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਹੀ ਚੱਕ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਕਹਿਣਾ ਵੀ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ. So ਜਦੋਂ when you had time ਪਾ ਕੇ you can think through ਵੀ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਾਤੇ ਹੋਈ ਜਾਂ ਉੱਦਾਂ. So reflection, self reflection is really important. ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਸੋਚਣਾ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਕੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਲਾਈਫ 'ਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ he said or did what he did. But it's a two-way street. But also ਪਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਇੰਨਾ ਜੋਸ਼ ਹੋਣਾ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਿਐਕਟ ਕੀਤਾ. So we need to fix ourselves. ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਸਹੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ, ਫਿਰ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੀ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ. ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜੇ ਸਾਡੇ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਓਨਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਆ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਅਗਲੇ 'ਚ ਆ, then it's just fire and fire.
Exactly.
ਹੈ ਨਾ? So it's really important ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਕੁਛ ਕਹਿਤਾ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮਾੜੀ ਮੋਟੀ ਗੱਲ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਹਾੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ. we got to try and keep it, stick to the facts. ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਦਾਂ ਕਹਿਤਾ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਪਾ ਦੇਣੀ ਉੱਤੇ, then ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਇੰਨੀ ਕੁ ਸੀਗੀ it just becomes bigger and bigger. ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ gossip ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਕਰਨੀ, that's not healthy where anger is concerned, because if you add something to what I've experienced, that's going to make me even more angry.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ 'ਚ ਖੋਜ ਕਰੋ ਵੀ ਮੇਰੇ 'ਚ ਕਾਤੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਆ, ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਆ, where does it come from?
And then the most important thing to heal gussa is forgiveness. Forgiveness is everything. And forgive yourself, because there's something in me that I'm holding on to, some memories and program, that I'm forgiving myself, or I'm holding on to gussa towards in myself, and that's why the outer world is I'm attracting it. So somebody's out there showing me that something I'm holding in me, so I'm forgiving myself. And when I'm forgiving myself, and because there's some guilt and shame in me, that's why I'm attracting those situations. So it really comes down to I'm going to forgive and be love and compassion to myself, because holding any form of gussa, resentment, mera nuksan hunda, or kisi da nuksan hunda. It's like you're holding a coal, hot coal. I'm burning myself, and why am I hurting myself like this? So the other person, okay, they behaved so inappropriately, both misbehaved kita mere naal, but then if I'm feeling the sadness, anger, I need to give myself love, and my job is not to give others a responsibility that they have to behave at that for main khush rahungi. I cannot give other people that responsibility. It's my responsibility to honor my worth and my self-respect, that I need to do this for myself, because as soon as somebody doesn't behave or do not give me what I want, फिर सानू गुस्सा आ जाता.
And this all goes to back to expectations. क्योंकि ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਗਲਾ ਇਦਾਂ ਕਰੂਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਠੀਕ ਆ, ਪਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਚ ਬਦਲਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਗਲਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ ਠੀਕ ਆ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਤੇ we have to ਸੋਚ ਕੇ ਸਮਝਾਉਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ we're not saying you don't but ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਸਿਆਣੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਚ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ so we have to be willing to listen first before you judge and expect ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਐਕਸਪੈਕਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਐਕਸਪੈਕਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ they don't provide you with what you expect ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕਦਮ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ disappointed ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ so when someone doesn't meet your expectations you get upset you get angry you get annoyed all those negative emotions come and if it's something serious then you could get angry but had you have kept your expectations low then who knows they could do above and beyond for what you wanted.
That's right, yes,
so but you've got to give the other person the opportunity to do that. So and again, you know, what we're saying is that it's important to give these kind of people who are angry and it's not something that happens overnight. We all have to work on it because life throws so many different curved balls at us that you know we just don't know what's around the corner, but if we can be loving and compassionate to ourselves then hopefully we can share that with other people.
I mean just and be kind to yourself because even though we're sharing out the information but I don't make myself really bad for it. I don't punish myself for it. I just say okay, I'm sorry, I've done it again. It's an automatic behavior and I forgive myself and then I start again. You know, and then I get slowly I'm getting better and better and better at it, but at least I'm aware that I'd rather let go of that anger, grudge, resentment towards anyone because if I'm holding any of these feelings I'm not hurting the other person, you know, the other person's not being damaged at all and I'm damaging myself and I have to let it go.
And it's important to understand that, you know, life's always full of highs and lows and when things are good, great, but when things are not so good then that's the time to sort of slow down, self-reflect, be aware of what's going on and sometimes, you know, if it's a volatile situation mentally and physically step away so you can look at it with a bird's eye view to kind of you know look at what's actually going on rather than being emotional and then just get stuck right into it. I mean those are the kind of things I talk to my clients about. I don't know whether you kind of come across those kind of things.
Anger has
say the joke
and anger always has this very potent energy. It's both strong so the energy has to go somewhere, so use that energy, go and do some gardening or running. The energy has to be
dancing.
Dancing. So that energy just wants to be released or just hit a football or something, but don't do it the normal way. So we're going to finish for today.
It's been a great program. I hope you've enjoyed it.
It's gone ever so quick and we enjoy doing our shows, but we're so grateful that we've got these wonderful viewers listening to us and we enjoy sharing everything that we've learned. And but always one day we'll say a joke at the end of the show and but I hope you did find that our story is interesting because we thought we'd try something different and I think I always say stories to my kids as well because I think they always find it interesting way. And then we'll see you next week. And
looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. And Jay Gurdev, thank you.